Hello, Sarah of SEK Handmade here, and I am so excited to share with you today that I have found the one thing, the magic key, the Rosetta Stone, that is going to help you grow your crochet skills and knowledge immensely and in what I argue is the best way possible. Now, if you are a knitter and not a crocheter, don't leave me here, because while this works for crochet, the exact same principles apply to knitting as well. All right, I'm going to start off by doing the thing they tell you not to do. I'm going to tell you the answer right up front here. The answer, the one thing you need to do to quickly and confidently improve your crochet skills is to swatch. Now wait, don't run away. I know that swatching gets such a bad reputation. A lot of times we associate swatching with meeting gauge, and man, that can be really tough and frustrating to do. Here's the good news though. I am not talking about gauge swatching. There's a difference. I am simply talking about swatching with the simple purpose to grow your skills and to learn new things and tuck all that knowledge away for a later time when you want to apply those wonderful skills that you've learned to a bigger project. Now, raise your hand or tell me in the comments below, little hands up emoji down there, if you have ever been bedazzled by a pattern. I know I get on Instagram all the time and see all these beautiful new patterns floating through my feed, and I am inspired to dive into them. But once you've been inspired and you purchase that pattern full of enthusiasm to make that gorgeous new pattern, you open it up to find yourself overwhelmed by new things that you need to learn to accomplish that pattern. Me. This has happened to me, absolutely. I have had projects languishing in the corner because I had enthusiasm, I opened the pattern and got completely overwhelmed. There were new stitches, new techniques, increasing, decreasing, charts to read, seams to be made. It was just too much. So I'm going to tell you why swatching is the solution to all of that overwhelm. All right, if you're still here with me, I want to say thank you, first of all. The fact that you did not run away at the first mention of swatching shows me that you are brave, and I appreciate that. I have recently really grown an appreciation of the value of swatching and its ability to quickly expand knowledge and skill. And here's why. 1, it allows you to start where you are comfortable. If you are learning a new stitch and applying it to a pattern, you already have your yarn, your hook or needle chosen for you. That fingering weight sweater may be absolutely gorgeous, but if you're not comfortable working with a smaller hook and fingering weight yarn, you're gonna potentially struggle to learn the new stitches. But if you're swatching, there's no guideline there. You don't have to have a certain yarn or a certain hook size. You can dive in and start where you are comfortable. And I highly recommend that. When you go to swatch, start with a yarn size and a hook size that you're comfortable with, as well as a yarn you like to use. Say you've picked out this gorgeous bag pattern, let's say, and it uses cotton yarn, but you are most comfortable working with acrylic yarn. Cotton and acrylic, they're very different. cotton does not have a lot of give to it, whereas acrylic stretches and is just, in my experience, a little more malleable. And so if you work with a lot of acrylic yarn, learn your stitches with the appropriate hook size and some worsted weight acrylic yarn, and just give it a swatch until you're comfortable. Start where you're comfortable. And with a swatch, because it's not a final project, you are free to use whatever yarn, whatever hook you want and are most comfortable with. It also helps you learn a vast array of new stitches and techniques. You can learn about new stitches, seaming techniques, but also tools. Just play around with some different tools. Get out some yarn with some different fiber content. Get out a wool, acrylic, a bamboo, an alpaca. Those are all very different yarns, and work up some swatches with them and just observe the difference between those. That is going to be invaluable knowledge when you go to pick yarn for your next project. You will also learn about your tools. If you have a couple wooden hooks and a couple metal hooks and an acrylic hook, do some swatches with the 3 different types of hooks and see what you like better. I always thought I loved wooden hooks, and I will always use wooden hooks because I do love them, but I have learned recently that there are certain yarns that I just like a metal hook with. It just slides better, and I learned that from swatching. When you work with swatches, you are going to learn a wide array of valuable information, and this invaluable information is going to be super helpful when it comes to choosing and making yarn substitutions for projects in the future. Check out the description below to a link to yarn substitution videos when I get those up, because that's a complicated topic. So, and swatching will help you build a depth of knowledge to make really good choices for yarn substitution in the future. It also allows you to enjoy the process. Drop me a me in the comments below if you are like me and you have picked up a garment to gauge swatch and made 7 gauge swatches. I'm not even exaggerating. 7 gauge swatches and not quite met gauge with any of them and walked away extremely frustrated. When you are swatching to learn and to grow your knowledge, there's none of that pressure to get it just right. You can pick up some yarn and a hook and a new stitch, and you can start your swatch at the bottom, and it can be this wide, and your stitches can be all sloppy, and it can like loosen out, and your stitches, you can perfect the stitches all the way through as you work. And guess what? It doesn't matter, because you're not swatching to meet a specific size. You're not swatching to have all of your stitches be uniform and perfect. You're swatching to learn and grow. And as you learn and grow, your stitches will change, and hopefully they'll become better and better and better. The great thing about swatches is that they are a low time commitment. If you're making even a 6x6 swatch, which is a good size swatch, you're not spending hours and hours and hours working on that swatch. You commit a night, pick up a yarn and a hook and a new stitch, and spend a night just playing with that new stitch, and you're done. It's also a low supplies commitment, because let's be honest, making bigger projects is an investment, not only in time, but the cost for supplies. And when you're doing swatches, a lot of times, I don't know if you're like me, I'm looking to see, I have a vase, a very large vase sitting on top of my shelves here, and it is full of hand wound balls of yarn. Every time I finish a project and I have any substantial amount of yarn left, I hand wind them into a ball. I'll link to that tutorial below as well. I hand wind them into a ball, and then they go up into my vase. That vase would be a great place to just grab out some yarn and make a swatch of a new stitch. Or don't forget that this can also be a great way to practice things like seaming techniques. I don't know about you, but I get hung up a lot on projects if there's a step that I'm scared of. And for me, I can make the beautiful panels of a cardigan and spend months not seaming them together for fear that that's going to be the thing. That's going to be the thing that ruins this big project that I've taken so long. Instead, make a couple swatches and practice the seaming on little swatches. And then you can seam it and tear it apart and seam it and tear it apart until you get really good at it. And then when you put that technique into something that is a big time commitment and that is a big money commitment, you'll be confident that you have the seaming skills to make it look really nice and professional. I'm going to say something here, and this is like unpopular opinion here probably. Nobody's going to like this, but I would like to pose to you that if you don't practice your new techniques and stitches on swatches, then that large project that you're doing is essentially a giant swatch. And sometimes that goes okay, right? Sometimes you make up a tote bag and the whole thing looks amazing. But sometimes it starts off real wonky and ends up okay, but then you've made the whole rest of the bag or the whole rest of the cardigan or the whole rest of the sweater. And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of a perfectionist, and it makes me want to tear back and start over again. If you had swatched those new stitches and techniques and perfected them ahead of time, your whole final project could be gorgeous without the learning curve practiced in the final project. So I highly, highly, highly encourage you, do some swatching. Now, if you're still with me, I assume that I have convinced you that swatching is the best way to go. And you might be wondering, okay, that's lovely, Sarah, but how do I swatch? I'm going to give you some suggestions. My first suggestion is stitch encyclopedias. All right? I have lots of them. 125 stitches. 200 stitches. 500 stitches. I mean, this one book could keep you busy for years, even if you swatch a new stitch every single day. Stitch encyclopedias often give you all the information you need to create a swatch, so it's all right there and real easy to pick up some yarn and a hook and make some swatches. Next thing I would suggest is search out some video tutorials. Go on Pinterest, go on YouTube. If you have a specific stitch you'd like to practice, just type in puff stitches and you'll find there are lots of ways you can use puff stitches. That's a fun one. Or popcorn stitches, or alpine stitch, or textured crochet stitches, and just see what comes up. And then make some swatches with those. The great thing about it is, like I said before, your swatch doesn't have to be perfect. So even if you come across a tutorial that doesn't give complete information and you don't get the multiple right, so you don't have the number of stitches correct to repeat the pattern evenly, it's not a big deal. It's just a swatch. So like fudge a couple stitches on the end and turn around and start again. It's no big deal. The point is the learning and the improving of your skills, not the perfection of the swatch. And you know I mean it, because you know how much I like perfection. The point is the learning. All right, my last suggestion about how to go about coming up with some ideas to swatch is this. Pull out that pattern that you put away because when you opened it up, there were all of those new techniques and stitches that you were unsure about. And take some time to just take them one by one. If the pattern does not provide any sort of stitch tutorial, go and search it out. Again, just because a designer hasn't made a tutorial on a specific stitch does not mean that it's not out there. So do a quick little search on YouTube. It can be a little tricky in the fact that some designers will create their own name for a stitch. So if you're having trouble finding a specific stitch, what I would suggest is go into a larger crochet forum on like a Facebook, or if you have a friend that you chit chat with on Instagram or something, or go into your local yarn shop and say, I've got this stitch, I can't find a tutorial for it anywhere. Do you know if it's called something different? Because one, some designers create names for stitches, and two, there are some stitches that are known by several names. And if the designer has picked one of the less popular versions, it may be harder to find a tutorial, but that doesn't mean that there's not a tutorial out there. So take that pattern, break it apart. Like I said, not just the stitches, but even the techniques too. And practice those on small swatches. Practice the shaping. Practice shaping in those new stitches after you've got the new stitch pattern down. Make a couple swatches and practice seaming them together if it's a cardigan. Make a little swatch and practice picking up a ribbing and doing an applied ribbing on the side of your swatch, just so that once you've got your gorgeous cardigan that you've spent hours and hours on, you're not going to add the applied ribbing and be like, wow, that ruined that. Take some time, do a little swatching, and you know what? Fall back on swatching. If you learned all of the stitches and practiced your seaming, let's say for a cardigan, and you didn't practice applied ribbing, and it's got an applied ribbing on it, and you start your applied ribbing and you're like, ugh. Back it up. Set that project down for a little bit. Get out, make a little swatch, and practice doing some applied ribbing over and over again until you feel really confident about it. And then you've done, 4 inches of applied ribbing and you feel really great about it, and you can rip back and practice and rip back and practice, rather than the inches and inches and inches that maybe go like all the way from the bottom of your cardigan up and over your head and back down the other side. And perfect it before you get knee deep in those sorts of techniques. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that I have convinced you of the value of swatching. I would love to know in the comments below if you are pro-swatching or anti-swatching. I hope I've changed your mind, but if not, hey, no judgment here. I'd love to chat with you. If you have any questions, I always love to hear from people and answer questions as best I can. Leave them in the comments below. In the description, there is a link to join my newsletter, and I love to get emails from people too. So once you're a part of my newsletter, you can reply to any of my emails, and I would love to chat with you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned the value of swatching. I create to help you improve your skills with confidence. And I would love to help you grow confidently. And to do that, it would be wonderful if you would like this video and subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications so that when I post a new video about a topic to help you grow, you will get notified about it. Thank you so much and happy crafting!